I've chosen this particular event amongst others because it had kind of an extreme example of trying to customize event capability around a particularly tricky ask. So originally it was like, well, we have an on-site event, but it's quite short. And so as I'm hauling stuff here, you might be thinking, well, why didn't you just fly? Which is a good question. I have a kit that actually supports flying and renting a car, but as the case was here, I needed to bring some digital remote stuff to do another event on site. Either way, what do you do when you've got a short event and you're trying to curate an experience for attendees? This is, like I said, an extreme example of pre-production and post-production, where most of what happened as far as the attendees is concerned is a short time. So here you see me on site, and you can do pre-draw at home. Quite often I'm setting up a setup in a hotel room, as is the case here. I've often spoke about logos of especially attendees and organizations. You can draw with more detail, obviously not live, than what you can capture live. But in terms of setting the stage, this actually gets corrected. In terms of setting the stage for attendees, yeah, you can put a lot more elbow grease into logos in this case beforehand. So this is just another example of what I'm doing quite often on site, which is pre-draw the night before. Yeah, quite often there's a discussion about the benefit of doing pre-draw logos. I think there's a strong case for it when it comes to the brand and recognition of attendees. Anyways, you get to see parts of the country that are beautiful, and yeah, drawing is fun, no doubt about it. It's nice to spend time in beautiful designs and render them with high fidelity, but eventually you have to repack up this gear and head out on the road. So, unless you had the opportunity for a site visit the night before, which is ideal, sometimes you kind of going in somewhat blind, which is less than ideal, but that's another reason why having your gear makes you more versatile and adaptive. Whatever situation comes your way. Like I said, this particular event was very, very short, and involved getting a sense of what some of the visual sound bites or strong iconography would be to include. So what better than to participate in a tour of the historic site, and I ended up using some of the photos that I shot myself. And there's nothing like being on site and having an experience to sort of make a determination as to what iconography is going to be most effective. Like I said, like a visual sound bite. So here's setting up, and again, taking note of some of those visual sound bites. There's what I've got for pre-draw, and then I'm pre-drawing as fast as can be, and you'll see here in a sec, poof, there's the event. It happened just like that. So only a small portion of the artwork is actually captured in the time in which it was contributed. And so the intent is that there's going to be a significant amount of post-production on this particular event. And that's an ongoing sort of discussion. The answer is always yes, and the appropriateness is determined only by the experience that you want your attendees to have, the longevity of the conversation, how long you want it to go. But I've chosen this particular example because it had quite a bit of pre, and now you'll see in a sec here some of the post. I mean, everybody who attends stuff understands the opportunity costs associated with being on the road. and all of the supplies therein. But I just had to include some of this eye candy here. I'm creating this video a long time later. In fact, Jasper just suffered a wildfire, but yeah, this parkway to Jasper is something to behold if you've never seen it. And on a clear bluebird day, I've heard there's no such thing as bad weather, only improper clothing. But this was cold, cold, cold. Minus 35 Celsius and lower. Anyways, back to base, as is often the case when post-production is the order. This event was like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. It's a different story. Sometimes you get multi-day events. So this is information that was actually distilled from the facilitators that was intended to be put in, and now I'm putting it in after the fact. So post-production can help with quantitative accuracy. There's a logo correction there, which is often the case. And so this is now where the on paper in person begins its journey to become a digital artifact. There's a lengthy video if you're interested in all of the particulars of how I go about creating optimal digital artwork. And by optimal, I mean without any stray ghosting of what on screen in principle is white but never is actually white. So this process is sort of the ways that I've evolved to get rid of the white pixels but retain the character of the felt pen, which is something that I think is worth retaining when you're doing digital artwork of a physical in-person paper. So you can see here, that's the complete English version. And then in an interesting twist, this particular event then had some fluent francophones go through and provide a spreadsheet of English to French translation. And so this is really cool in a digital app. In this case, the app is Procreate, using brushes that have sort of replicate the effect of some of that ink appearance. And so as far as I'm concerned, it looks pretty good. It looks like, even though this is a complete digital artifact, created in the sort of digitally sterile environment of, in pixel land, it still actually can be made to match pretty good the original pen strokes of those felt pens. And so using that spreadsheet, just go through and create the French translation of all of the text. So this is not doesn't happen all the time, and definitely constitutes a whole new scope. But again, when you're thinking in terms of like, well, how can we create a user experience that's ideal, sometimes the answer lies in some pre and post production. Cheers.